Technology the way you like it. This is Technology Today. Well, welcome everybody to Technology Today, episode 27. I'm your host, David Herzog, and today I've got some stories from the world of technology, and we're going to talk about ransomware, what it is, and how to prevent it from being installed on your computer. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and get started. Well, hello everybody. How's everybody doing? It's David Herzog here once again, talking at you on a Thursday, August 20th. Can't believe another month is gone. We've got 4 months left in this year. Hopefully everybody's back to school, and living your lives, working on making your lives better, as I am here myself, and trying to do your thing for the world, whatever that may be. Well, and I'm going to go ahead and get started with the first news that I have here. Microsoft in August this month, 2020, on Patch Tuesday, which was last Tuesday of the past week, released fixes for 20 days and 120 flaws. Today is Microsoft's, actually last Tuesday was Microsoft's August Patch Tuesday. And while this is just a typical day for most of us, Windows administrators around the world want to pull their hair out. With the release of the Office 2020 Patch Tuesday security updates, Microsoft has released one of the Service Stack update for Windows 10 Advisory and fixes for 120 vulnerabilities in Microsoft products. Of these vulnerabilities, 17 are classified as critical and 103 are classified as important. This release is the third largest Patch Tuesday update ever released by Microsoft, with the second largest being 123 fixes in July 2020 and the largest being issued on June 2020 with 129 fixes. As these updates fix 20-day vulnerabilities that have been actively exploited in attacks, users should install these security updates as soon as possible. For information about the non-security Windows updates, you can read about the Patch Tuesday's updates on Windows 10 KB 456 6782 and KB 456 5351 cumulative updates. And the 20-day vulnerabilities used in active attacks. According to Microsoft, 2 other vulnerabilities are being actively used in attacks, with one of them publicly disclosed. The first is CVE 2020-1380, Scripting Engine Memory Corruption Vulnerability, a remote code execution vulnerability in Internet Explorer 11. In a web-based attack scenario, an attacker could host a specifically crafted website that is designed to exploit the vulnerability through Internet Explorer and then convince a user to view the website. An attacker could also embed an ActiveX control marked safe for initialization in an application or Microsoft Office document that hosts the IE rendering engine. The attacker could also take advantage of compromised websites and websites that host or use user-provided content or advertisements. These websites could contain specifically crafted content that could exploit the vulnerability. And also, according to Microsoft, this vulnerability is being actively exploited in attacks, and it can be used in malicious Office documents. It was most likely spotted in phishing campaigns. The second vulnerability that is being used and publicly disclosed is CVE 2020 1464 Windows spoofing vulnerability, and allows attackers to spoof other companies when digitally signing in an executable. These spoof signatures could allow an attacker to bypass security features intended to prevent improperly signed files from being loaded. And the fix for CVE 2020-1472 is rolled out in 2 phases. In addition to the actively exploited 0 days, the fix for CVE 2020-1472 net logon elevation of privilege vulnerability is of particular interest as it is being rolled out in 2 phases. An elevation of privilege vulnerability exists when an attacker establishes a vulnerable net logon secure channel connection to a domain controller using the net logon remote protocol. An attacker who successfully exploited the vulnerability could run a specifically crafted application on the device on the network. To exploit, an unauthorized attacker would be required to use ms-nrpc to connect to a domain controller to obtain domain administrator access. The patch release as part of August Patch Tuesday updates will enable secure remote procedure called RPC communication for machine accounts on Windows-based devices, trust accounts in all Windows and non-Windows DCs. This patch will also log non-compliant devices so that system administrators can resolve their issues or replace them before the second phase of the fix rolls out. In February of this year, updates in Microsoft, and it will enable the second round part of this fix, or in February of 2021, misspoke there. Microsoft will enable the second part of this fix and automatically enforce security RPC communications for all devices on the network and no longer log non-compliant. Well, so that's pretty interesting, things going on right there. Second news I have for everybody here, and who's interested, or I found interesting anyway. Cybersecurity. These 2 basic flaws make it easy for hackers to break into your systems. Penetration testers share common security failings that leave companies' computers vulnerable to attack. Hackers can gain access to international networks or corporations by exploring 2 security failings, and in as little as 30 minutes. Ethical hackers and cybersecurity researchers at Positive Technologies perform penetration testing against organizations in a wide variety of sectors, but find common security vulnerabilities across all industries. The findings have been detailed in a report, Penetration Testing of Corporate Information Systems. The report, based on anonymized data from real organizations which have had their networks tested, said that for 71% of companies, there's at least one obvious weakness which could provide malicious outsiders with entry into the network. And one of the most common security issues is weak passwords, allowing hackers to gain access to accounts by using brute force attacks. Cracking the password of one account shouldn't be enough to gain full access to an internal network, but in many cases, it just takes this and the ability to exploit known vulnerabilities to gain further access to systems. The problem lies in the low levels of protection even for large organizations. Attack vectors are based primarily on exploiting known security flaws. This means that companies do not follow basic information security rules. In addition to weak passwords, over 2/3 of organizations are using vulnerable versions of software which hasn't received the required security updates, leaving it open to being exploited. An attacker can quickly gain access to an internal network if a web application contains a known vulnerability for which a public exploit exists. for brute force. In one instance, ethical hackers were about to use a brute force attack to access a remote desktop application, something which has become more commonly used during the increasing working from home in 2020. The user didn't have access to many applications, but by opening a mapping application, the security testers were able to gain access to the Windows Explorer processes and command lines, allowing the ability to execute commands on the operating system and gain more access. In a third of penetration exercises, researchers were able to gain access to the internals of a corporate network by combining the brute forcing and software vulnerabilities. In this instance, attacks could be protected against by ensuring the use of strong passwords and any applications being used having security patches applied so they can't be exploited in attacks. In these examples, the networks were being accessed by ethical hackers as part of security testing, but cyber criminals are looking to exploit these vulnerabilities and could use them to gain access to a vast variety of corporate networks. The average time it took ethical hackers to get to the internal network was 4 days, but in one case, it was possible in just 30 minutes. Wow. An attacker can develop an attack on critical business systems, for example, financial systems, gain access to computers of top managers, or conduct an attack on a company's customers or partners. In addition, hackers can sell the obtained access on the dark net to other criminals to conduct attacks, for example, ransomware. However, by following some common security procedures, such as not using weak passwords, applying multi-factor authentication, ensuring the network is patched with software updates, it's possible for organizations to protect themselves against many forms of attempted cyber attacks. Wow. There's a lot we have to do, to keep ourselves safe online these days, isn't there? It just keeps getting tougher and tougher, but we have to remain vigilant, and do all we can to keep ourselves safe. And the third bit of news that I have here for everyone today, let's see how there's over 1 billion Android devices are at risk of data theft. And this kind of surprised me, I guess it really shouldn't, but it does. 1 billion or more Android devices are vulnerable to hacks that can turn them into spying tools by exploiting more than 400 vulnerabilities in Qualcomm's Snapdragon chip, researchers reported this week. The vulnerabilities can be exploited when a target downloads a video or other content that's rendered by the chip. Targets can also be attacked by installing malicious apps that require no permissions at all. From there, attackers can monitor locations and listen to nearby audio in real time and exfiltrate photos and videos. Exploits also make it possible to render the phone completely unresponsive. Infections can be hidden from the operating system in a way that makes disinfecting difficult. Snapdragon is what's known as a system on a chip that provides a host of components such as a CPU and a graphics processor. One of the functions, known as digital signal processing, or DSP, tackles a variety of tasks including charging abilities and video and audio augmented reality and other multimedia functions. Phone makers can also use DSPs to run dedicated apps that enable custom features. While DSP chips provide a relatively economical solution that allows mobile phones to provide end users with more functionality and reliable, innovative features, they do come with a cost. Researchers from a security firm Checkpoint wrote in a brief report of the vulnerabilities they discovered. These chips introduce new attack surface and weak points to these mobile devices. DSP chips are much more vulnerable to risk as they are being managed as black boxes, since it can be very difficult and complex for anyone other than their manufacturer to review their design and functionality code. Qualcomm The chip maker for chips that you use in phones has released a fix for these flaws, but so far it hasn't been incorporated into the Android OS or any Android device that uses Snapdragon. And Check Point is also withholding technical details about the vulnerabilities and how they can be exploited until fixes make their way into end user devices. And let's see that the Check Point has dubbed the vulnerabilities Achilles. The more than 400 distinct bugs are tracked as CVE 2020 11201, CVE 2020 11202, CVE 2020 11206, CVE 2020 11207, and CVE 2020 11208, and CVE 2020 11209. And in a statement, Qualcomm officials said regarding the Qualcomm Compute DSP vulnerability disclosed by Check Point, we work diligently to validate the issues and make appropriate mitigations available to OEMs. We have no evidence it is currently being exploited. We encourage end users to update their devices as patches become available and to only install applications from trusted locations such as the Google Play Store. Wow. Some things to think about, when you're on your phone, because we are with our desktop PCs, we have, and our laptops, we also have our phones, which are mini computers as well. They need to be kept safe as well from ransomware and malware, and you need to watch how you use them. We all need to watch how we use our cell phones as well too. All right, that little guitar thing there was the last signaling the last of the podcast here, and it's about ransomware, what it is, and how to prevent it. Ransomware is a type of malware that prevents you from using your computer or accessing certain files unless you pay a ransom. It often encrypts your files so they cannot be opened. And a few examples of the many forms of ransomware that are out there include Locky, Reviton, CryptoLocker, and CryptoWall. And ransom is usually often distributed as a Trojan or malware disguised as a legitimate file. Once installed, it may lock your computer and display a lock screen with a message saying you must pay a ransom to regain use of your computer. With a message saying you must pay a ransom to regain use of your computer, this may be a fake message purporting to be from a government institution like the FBI or Department of Defense saying you must pay a fine. It may also be a blatant ransom message saying your files are being held for ransom and you must pay you must pay money to access them again. The ransom message typically includes instructions for how to pay the fine, often by credit card or Bitcoin. Ransom amounts can range from less than $100 to several thousands of dollars. And some ransomware may allow you to use your computer but will prevent you from opening certain files. When you try to open a file or directory encrypted by the ransomware, you may see a message or alert box stating your files are being held for ransom and you must pay a fee to regain access to them. Yeah, this is very nasty. You don't want this on your computer. Yeah. And How do you deal with ransomware? Well, okay. The best way to deal with ransomware is to prevent it. Don't open unknown files or downloads from untrusted websites. You may also want to install antivirus or internet security software if you don't already have it on your computer that can detect and eliminate ransomware threats before they take over your computer. This is especially true if you use Windows, as it is the platform most commonly targeted by ransomware. If your computer is infected with ransomware, you have a few options. First one, if you have a recent system backup, you can revert to a saved state before the ransomware infected your computer. For that, you have to have use a Windows backup, which is part of Windows, or you can purchase Acronis True Image 2020, which is what I have and is what I use religiously for my backups. And the second, you could search for an internet security utility that can remove the specific ransomware installed on your system and possibly decrypt your files. Third, and this one's not recommended, you can pay the ransomware fee and contact your bank or credit card company to block or refund the transaction. So, there's some interesting stories right there. And I wanted to go ahead and give my little plug here. If you are curious and you would like to listen to this podcast, you can listen to it on Spreaker.com in the technology section of the web page, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and Google Play. And also new that I have, I've started. You can watch this podcast on YouTube on my Technology Today channel on YouTube. And also, if you would like to, check out my Twitter page, you can watch it on Twitter as well too. And there's my Twitter link to my Twitter page there for those who are watching. The scrolling text on the bottom of the screen that I have going on there at the bottom, you can see that. And with that being said, we're going to go ahead and end the podcast here. And if you're curious and you want to find out more information about me, you can find me on the University of Cincinnati's homepage at homepages.uc.edu/the _HerzogDL. Or you can find this podcast on Spreaker.com in the technology section of their webpage, and on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and Google Play. And additionally, as I previously mentioned, you can also watch this podcast on my YouTube channel, Technology Today. And also, if you choose to, you can follow me on my Twitter page where you can watch this podcast as well. And I'd like to thank everyone for listening and watching today, and I'll be talking at you soon. Goodbye until next time.